Well, it's a pleasure to welcome back to the program our good friend Rick Santorum, who started quite a trend. The trend is visit the great state of North Dakota. Ron Paul followed Mitt Romney yesterday, and it's a little bit of mini-me, but we appreciate everything he did to place that light on the great state of North Dakota ahead of the caucus on Tuesday. Senator Rick Santorum, great to have you back. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great, and we've been talking about North Dakota for ever since I've been there. You guys make quite an impression on me, I got to tell you. And that piece of shell rock has traveled the country and been on national television more than once. And we're talking about what's going on up there and what this President of the United States is doing to stick it to North Dakota, so you can't really explode the way you should in jobs and a quality of life and the stability of investment, because you don't have the certainty with this administration and their environmental policy, and then of course you don't have the pipeline. The president is trying to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, and we're going to go out there and talk about how we're going to make sure that North Dakota, has that golden egg delivered brightly.
Well, you're not only talking about North Dakota, you're talking about Tioga, and there's something symbolic in Tioga where the oil boom of North Dakota was born in 1951, but it reminds me very much of what you did in Iowa and sort of defying the logic and respecting small town America. So thank you for that too,
Well, that's funny. I've been out there and repeatedly have, I don't know if you saw me on election night the other day where I gave Tioga, North Dakota a shout out. And so far, I got to tell you, Scott, no one has cheered when I said Tioga, North Dakota. So I'm still waiting for the first person who's from Tioga, North Dakota at one of my events to cheer.
I love it. It's fantastic. Well, I got to tell you, Mitt Romney was in North Dakota yesterday, and I think this is an interesting contrast in that your events in North Dakota attracted about 2,000 folks between Tioga and Fargo. Mitt Romney was here, the presumed nominee according to the establishment and a lot of folks right now, all this momentum and everything else. There was less than 200 people there, about 150 chairs and about 50 standing by many accounts, and very little enthusiasm. The national media said, boy, it's like this everywhere. All the enthusiasm, all the crowds are for Santorum, and the small crowds and the sort of polite responses from the Romney camp. I mean, that's exactly why Mitt Romney hasn't sealed this deal for the nomination, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Scott, that we win elections when our base is excited. That's what happened in 2010. That's what happened in all the presidential elections since the age of television. But we've had a candidate that's been able to excite our base and get our people fired up. We win, and that means we have to have a good communicator and and obviously even more importantly, a strong conservative that people trust. And this race is a long, long way from being over. North Dakota can be huge on Super Tuesday. Romney has in his back pocket, the state of Massachusetts. But I don't know if you saw, we're within a half a dozen points in the state of Vermont in a poll that came out today. So we're competing everywhere. We feel very good about our chances. The media is trying to sew this thing up for them, but North Dakota can stand up and say we want someone who shares our values, someone who's going to talk about the values of your state and the energy possibility of your state, who's actually been there, been out to the wellheads, talked to the people at the man camps, and have really understand what's at stake in this election.
Why is Mitt Romney not able to seal this deal? What is the disconnect there? Why is the lack of passion and enthusiasm and excitement there?
Well, there's one thing to fill out a form and say I'm now a conservative. It's another thing for people to see it in you. I mean, I don't think anybody doubts that when I stand up there and I articulate the vision for why we need a strong energy program, that we need to drill for oil and gas and we need to produce more energy. They know that I'm not someone who try to put caps on CO2 production, not someone who believed in man-made global warming and said they had to slow down energy production. You see, that's where Governor Romney was and still is. I mean, even as last year he said, yes, I believe man-made global warming is contributing. Carbon dioxide is contributing to man-made global warming. This is the problem: is that it's a lack of conviction, a lack, of really understanding where the conservative mind is in America and what makes us a great country. And I think that's what I bring to the table, and I'm hopeful that people of North Dakota will respond to that.
When you were here in North Dakota, you asked the audience, would you rather have a candidate who believes what he says or one where you just don't know? Do you think Mitt Romney doesn't believe what he says?
Well, I mean, just look at what happened the other day, Scott, when he was asked the question about the Blunt Amendment, which, as you know, was voted down. And he was asked the question about, religious liberties and the issue of insurance and the Obama administration. And his gut reaction, he said he didn't understand the question, but it doesn't matter. But his gut reaction when a question about religious liberty or sexual freedom was, I'm not going to mess around with people's sexual freedom. And that's, if the issue is religious liberty, I'm not too sure there's too many things I would say that trump religious liberty. It's the First Amendment. It's the most important of all rights. There's certain things, of course, but this is not a new debate for Governor Romney. He knew what's being debated in the public right now, and his gut reaction was not a conservative one. And he talked to his advisors, and he's now flip-flopped and said, "Oh, I misunderstood it." The bottom line is, you would have never asked Rick Santorum that question and him not say, wait a minute, is this a question about religious liberty? Are you trying to say that the state can impose their values on churches and people of faith? The answer is absolutely not.
The political class, the cocktail party crowd, believes that, you got a shoestring campaign and your David versus Goliath deal, and they're talking about, a strategy shift that's going to test this small campaign. Go at that narrative, if you will, of what everybody's saying, that, hey, there's no way you can do this. Being outspent, having a shoestring campaign, having to adjust your strategy and everything else. Bring us inside the strategy. How do you become the Republican nominee?
Well, we're gonna run. We're gonna have a good day on Super Tuesday. We believe that. I mean, right now we're very strong in Oklahoma and Tennessee. We're heading to Ohio in a competitive race. We feel very good about doing well in North Dakota, and I'm here in Washington State, and we have we've had great crowds here. Just came from Spokane. We had almost 1,000 people, and then we called a meeting and in 48 hours had 1,000 people there, and lots of energy and enthusiasm. We got the caucuses here on Saturday, and I think if we do well here in Washington, and everybody says Ron Paul's going to win the caucus, well, if we upset the apple cart up here in Washington State, heading into Super Tuesday, people are going to have to again say, wait a minute, this guy's got more organization, more energy and enthusiasm than anybody thinks. You look at what we just did in fundraising in this past month, Scott. We had 130,000 donors, of which 2/3 of whom are small dollar donors. We raised $9 million in the month of February, and we raised it with small dollar donations. Just to give you an idea, compare that to Governor Romney. He doesn't have 2/3 of his donors as small dollars. He has 9% are small dollar donors. We're the ones that have the grassroots campaign. We're the ones that are out there building the team that's going to be necessary to win this election, and this race is a long, long way from being over, and North Dakota can have a huge impact on it.
Karl Rove wrote today that if Mitt Romney loses Ohio, he won't get the nomination. Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I don't think any state is determinative. I mean, certainly had we come back and won Michigan, and we just finished a couple. It's really interesting with Michigan, Scott. I don't know if you know this, but over 100,000 people voted before Missouri, Colorado, and Minnesota we won those three states. Wow. And in those votes, we lost by about 40,000 votes. Just to give you an idea, we lost the whole state by 32. So from the time we won those primaries and we got put on the radar screen, Mitt Romney outspent me 6-1. He had all the establishment behind him. He had the party behind him. And yet we walked out of there with just as many delegates as he did, and we actually won from the time I started campaigning in Michigan. So we feel very, very good that our message is still strong and that people are still looking for a principled conservative to win this election.
I want to play you something that Mitt Romney was asked today concerning the Second Amendment and whether or not, if president, he would defend the Second Amendment. Listen to this.
Yeah, thank you. I like all the amendments, and I like the Second Amendment. I like the Constitution. It's my blueprint. And I will protect the right to bear arms in this country for any lawful purpose, self-protection, hunting, whatever purpose people have. I have a couple of guns myself, and shotguns, that is. And I know that people have their own choices in this regard. I know there will be an attack on the Second Amendment, just as there was recently an attack on the First Amendment. And you point that out. Obamacare...
All right. So that's the main point. Now, the gun owners of America have done some research on Governor Romney's record, saying that he signed legislation that looks pretty much like a semi-auto ban. said Massachusetts' repressive anti-gun laws among the worst in the nation were good because they keep people safe. He has said as president he would not pass new gun bills, which Gun Owners of America says is identical to the position of Obama. He's refused to return their survey, which asked, among other things, whether he'd push the UN treaty requiring registration of firearms and banning large categories of firearms. And in some respects, the Gun Owners of America say Mitt Romney represents a greater danger than Obama. Do you agree with all that?
Well, I would agree that that Mitt Romney's record on gun control is not very good. I mean, he as governor of Massachusetts, he didn't change any of the laws, which are very restrictive. He did sign a semi-automatic ban, just similar to the one that went into effect in Washington D.C. This is a new twist to Governor Romney. He's now running in a Republican primary, but he's not doing anything proactive to protect the Second Amendment. You're right. He hasn't filled out that survey, which I have. I'm going to make sure that we have. There's a national concealed carry that's out there that I support. I mean, there are things that we can and should be doing to make sure that the Second Amendment stays as there to protect the First. And Governor Romney is not someone who has had a record on that. And I think you heard by his answer. It's just, it's sort of fluff. There's no real heart there. You've got someone who's got an A+ rating from the NRA, someone who's been out there fighting when I was in the Senate to protect gun rights, and will continue to do so as president.
Let's talk about President Obama a little bit. His Secretary of Energy, Chu, is in a huge flap because he basically said the job of the Obama administration is to wean Americans off of oil. And now Obama comes out has unveiled a quote-unquote domestic energy plan, which is all about punishing oil companies and saying that they ought to have tax breaks, tax subsidies removed. First of all, my understanding of the tax law is that the oil companies don't have anything any other like-minded manufacturers have in the way of how they expense huge expenses to drill for oil. So isn't it really about punishing oil companies, not removing subsidies?
Yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, there is a small driller's tax credit. I mean, there's a small tax credit for drilling. But what Obama's talking about is depletion allowance and things like that, which are simply tax structures that are similar to someone depreciating property, depreciating assets that are treated. And this is a depreciating asset, which is your oil reserves, and depletion allowance is simply an equivalent of that for a resource producer. This is more of the administration trying to punish oil companies, trying to punish energy companies because they see energy in the ground as a liability, not an asset, and that's the fundamental problem with this administration.
All right, I want to ask a couple other quick things here about. Let me play you this. I'm playing another clip. This is from Senator Kent Conrad. It was meant as criticism of you, and of course Conrad's in the news because all people are wringing their hands that folks like Conrad and Olympia Snow and others are leaving the Senate, and gosh almighty, there's no middle anymore. And, of course, those people are all Washington establishment types in the media. But Ken Conrad is critical of you for something that I think is quite honestly an attribute. But I want to see if you agree. Here's what he said.
Well, Rick is somebody that has no doubts about his position and very little interest in the views of those who disagree with him. I think that would be my take on how Senator Santorum conducted himself with his colleagues when he was in the Senate.
So pretty unyielding.
Absolutely unyielding and uncompromising. And unfortunately, my own view of what's necessary here is the left and the right have to get off their fixed positions if we're going to get this country back on track.
Is that what's going to get this country back on track? More backroom compromise deals?
Heck no. Principled compromise, of course, is an important thing, but principles based on being out there with the public, articulating the vision, and doing things like welfare reform, which, by the way, I think Ken Conrad voted for, which I managed that bill. So, and that transformed the entire welfare system in this country, like health savings accounts, a conservative idea. Yes, I was uncompromising. We continue to push, but you know what? We got people to join us and get it done. You have to stand up for your principles. That's what leadership is about. It's about motivating people to join you, to find that, see if you can get people to join your team and persuade them. Unyielding in things that I absolutely believe are I'm unyielding in the right to life. I'm unyielding in making America energy independent. I'm unyielding in making sure that America is safe. Yes, I can be unyielding on things that are important, but that doesn't mean that you can't get things accomplished. And I've got a track record of getting conservative things accomplished on national security, moral cultural issues, on economic and fiscal issues that I'll match up against anybody.
And I think one of the reasons you're seeing the passion that you are and you saw in North Dakota, you're seeing in other places, is that people are tired of folks like Olympia Snowe, quite honestly, and that sort of Republican in name only mantra, or Kent Conrad, claiming to be the budget chair and a fiscal hawk and then not being able to crank out a budget. I mean, he's retiring because he was going to lose. Same reason Byron Dorgan is retiring, because it doesn't sell anymore. People want somebody with convictions, don't they?
Well, back in the day, I was criticized in Pennsylvania for being, too strong and too principled and conservative and too unyielding, and so Kent is just sort of mouthing, what the Democrats used when they ran against me last time. And it's funny because what Governor Romney is out there saying is, he's not a real conservative. So it's sort of funny that the main hit on Rick Santorum for the 12 years I was in the Senate is what Conrad said, that I'm principled, I'm unyielding, I'm someone who stands for what I believe in and fights for it. And then Governor Romney, a Massachusetts moderate who put in Romney Care, who ran as a pro-choice candidate, a strong supporter of gay rights, someone who was, increased taxes, expanded the size of government, and now I'm not the conservative in the race. This is why people look at Mitt Romney and say, who is he? Because he's not. He's trying to be something that he isn't, instead of standing up for what he believes in, and where his record has been. I
want to go to lightning round real quickly to get you back on the road here, and address a couple of speeches that you've given recently. And one of them, which by the way was in my mind almost a quasi-dirty trick, because it was somebody dusting off a speech of yours in 2008 before Ave Maria University, in which you were quoting, I don't know if you know this, but Fargo Diocese Bishop Samuel Aquila, talking about the father of lies, and in my view, talking about America being the greatest country on the face of the earth, and who else would someone who stands for evil attack? The greatest country on the face of the earth over 200 years, saying great things about America, and then saying obviously that's who someone that stands for evil is going to attack. Did you realize that was actually our Fargo bishop that you were quoting there?
Well, I actually know your bishop, and he's a very good man, and I've read a lot of his stuff. And, I was there as a private citizen talking to a group of Catholics and Catholic kids, and, I believe in good and evil. I think most people in America believe in good and evil, and, I was out there talking, let's put it this way. Jesus believed in Satan. I mean, I think I'm in better company there than a bunch of irreligious reporters who don't.
Amen. The other thing that got you in a little trouble was talking about Barack Obama as a bit of a snob when it comes to demanding that everybody go to college. And one of the reasons you went on to explain was because of the lack of academic freedom that happens. Ironically, a gentleman you met while you were in North Dakota, a buddy of mine by the name of Rusty Ort, non-traditional student. Here he is, in his late 40s, going back to school. And by the way, his faith and his religion being questioned by an instructor of his, as well as the fact that he's raised a few points about a very liberal professor and literally is being sanctioned and brought up on all kinds of things. Exactly what you were talking about, isn't it?
Well, Scott, I mean, it reminds me of the scene in Casablanca where the inspector comes in and sees that there's gambling going on at Rick's Cafe and is shocked. Oh my goodness, there's gambling going on here. For the left to say, "Oh, I'm shocked that you say that colleges are liberal." I mean, this is absurd. Of course they are. I mean, even when I was going to college, I was docked by professors because they didn't agree with what I was writing, what I was talking about in certain classes. This is standard fare for conservatives to get beat up in the mainstream campuses across this country, and government and the media turns its back to it. They continue to fund it. If colleges and universities across this country were as hostile to the left as they are to people on the right and conservatives, you would see government investigations. You'd see the media doing exposés. You'd talk about intolerance on college campuses. You'd talk about right-wing theocrats trying to impose their values. But if it's the other way around, you even mention it, and they think that you're somehow or another some conspiracy theorist.
Well, when a wounded warrior, a vet, is getting harassed for his political views and his faith in religion at a campus at Fargo, North Dakota at NDSU, I'm not going to take it, and I'm glad you're bringing it up because I agree with you. It's very obvious it's there. Our friend, the late Andrew Breitbart, I am so sad about this today.
Oh, very sad.
I mean, just the father of four, great guy who literally, ladies and gentlemen, died for the cause. Andrew Breitbart went like a madman. The guy would get I'd get texts from him in the middle of the night, nonstop. He coined the phrase the Democratic media complex. And that Democratic media complex is essentially, the media and how it joins with the establishment, basically, and the establishment of the left and the right. They're right now in a tither. Some think it's a good thing. Some think it's a bad thing that this long primary caucus debate to crown a GOP nominee is damaging the brand. Is it damaging the brand in your view?
Not at all. I mean, most of the, as you see, most of the debates and most of the speeches, and we're out there banging on President Obama, and that's what my speeches are about. They're not about Mitt Romney or Newt Gingrich. They're about what Barack Obama's doing to this country, and that's where our focus should be. Unfortunately, we've got these negative ads that are being run by Governor Romney's super PAC and the like, and he's just been a very, very negative force in this campaign. And we're sticking to the issues. We're doing the best we can to stay above the fray and talk about what's important in our country, and that's creating jobs, promoting the American family, getting energy independence, and getting freedom back in our country by limiting the size and scale of government.
And by the way, I don't think Mitt Romney would have rolled out the tax plan that he did had you not been giving him the race of his life in the state that he calls his home.
That's right. I mean, look, like I said, to come within 3 points and come out of there with the same number of delegates is really, quite remarkable. And we feel very, very good that we've got the energy and the boost to hopefully you guys here listening to me can give us a big win in the caucus in North Dakota. We come out of there strong with a lot of delegates and surprise a lot of people in a whole host of states on Super Tuesday.
Well, you can tell they're going to walk on broken glass and over hot coals for you, and we appreciate the time today. Give you a chance to talk to them before Tuesday's big day. Thanks, Senator.
Thanks so much, Scott.
God bless you.
God bless you. Bye-bye. God bless you. Bye-bye. God bless you. Bye-bye.